I understand. So I'm talking with the girl.
I'm cracking up. The strobe lights are going off on me.
Sitting here on the street.
Keep blinking. It's a party.
All right, we are on YouTube now, so just so you know.
Hello, YouTube.
Broadcasting to the world.
We streaming? Yes, we are streaming. None. Thank you all for coming. If you would like to please stand, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for, oh, is this on? You mic on? Are you here?
No,
it's not.
nope.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Oh, it's on.
Ooh. Ooh.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here tonight for this September 12th, 2024 meeting of the Nyack Village Board of Trustees. We have a very packed agenda tonight, which includes four different public hearings that were either started or continued from prior meetings that relate to a number of very important issues. And we also have some other resolutions and business that we'll be taking up. I did want to start just by thanking, really offering my thanks and my gratitude to a number of people who made yesterday's ceremony for 9/11 so special. We had a wonderful event to remember people that we lost 23 years ago, as well as the people that we've lost since. There are six Nyack and Upper Nyack and South Nyack residents or people who grew up in the area who were remembered yesterday, and it was a lovely service that included, I want to thank specifically the people that provided some services there. That includes Nicole Stroud, who sang our national anthem, Alessandro Francisco, who sang His Eyes on the Sparrow, Nyack High School senior Emma Van Dorp, who sang Amazing Grace, Nyack High School senior Robert Del Rosario, who played taps at the end. I'd like to thank First Lieutenant Vincent Cuccia from the Empire Hook and Ladder Company No. 1, who recited the fireman's prayer. I'd like to thank everybody at Empire Hook and Ladder No. 1 who came and did the work, and it takes a while for them to mount the large flag that then flies over the park during the event. And I want to thank Chief Jim Petrillo for helping in putting together and organizing the event and for all the support. And then Rabbi Aaron Reich, who at the last minute, I imposed upon him to share some final thoughts and a final prayer for us. Izzy Quintan and everyone at the American Legion who provided the color guard, including the rifle salute, and of course the officers from Orangetown Police Department whose presence reminded us of the sacrifices made by police officers 23 years ago. So thank you for that. It was a wonderful ceremony. It was only possible because of all the hard work that they did. I also want to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce, Orcade. I'm not sure who had the street fair last week, but it was a great fair. It was a beautiful day for it. Very successful. I hope people enjoyed it. And I want to highlight some events coming up. This week, this Sunday, is the Jazz Festival that's put on by Maureen's Jazz Cellar. That's going to be on Sunday afternoon. The last time they did this, it was the Grateful Dead Festival, and it was very popular. Lots of people came. It's really, if you're around on Sunday, you should definitely check it out. Also, this week, I just came from the opening celebration of the Phoenix Festival, which kicks off this week. And if you are interested at all in live arts, there's a number of wonderful performances that will be starting this weekend here in Nyack. And I'm very grateful for the work that they did putting that together. It's a really wonderful event. Before we start with, we're going to be getting a presentation from Marcy Danker. There she is, Marcy Danker, who's the sustainability coordinator for the village. But before we do that, we did want to take a moment. We've started doing this, and we like recognizing some members of the community who, for some of their outstanding achievements and some of their outstanding contributions to the Nyack community. And tonight, we do have a certificate of merit. Let me just stand and read this. On behalf of the Village of Nyack Board of Trustees, we hereby issue the certificate of esteemed merit to Michael Brady in recognition of your 40 years of dedicated and outstanding service to the Village of Nyack. Your commitment and reliability have made a lasting impact on our community, and your friendly presence has been a source of comfort and connection to many. With heartfelt thanks and best wishes for a joyful retirement. Michael Brady was 40 years, was a mail carrier, post office worker here in Nyack. 40 years. A really outstanding achievement, and we're very grateful. So
We didn't get your signature on that.
would you like to say a few words about
Yeah.
40 years of service? We start with thank Michael. We're going to mail that. Michael, we're going to mail that to you. My grandfather, who came over from Italy, my grandfather came over from Italy in the teens, 1917, 1918, worked for about 30 years as a mail carrier in Brooklyn. And I know how hard he worked for many years, and it's a lot of work. I thank you for everything you did for the community, and to do it with a smile on your face and a kind word for everybody is really extraordinary. Who's here with you? Just if you mind introducing.
My wife, Peggy, my daughter Megan, and my daughter Sarah.
Thank you all for coming. You know that when someone sacrifices for the community and gives to the community, it's the whole family that participates in that as well. So thank you for 40 years of being home while you just walk through hail and sleet and all that stuff the dead of night. So thank you for that. Now we're going to go into our regular. I have to make sure you get this in because I signed it. Please pass that along to him. If anyone is here for the presentation to him, you don't feel like you have to stick around for the rest of the meeting, which is not nearly as much fun as handing out certificates to distinguished members of our community. So with that, let me get Marcy. Marcy, come on up, and you have a presentation for us on the climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. There's a mic there for you if you want to speak into the mic so that people can hear you in the back, and also you turned off the air conditioner. It's cold. That's going to change in a couple seconds. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so this is just a really brief update and sort of review of what this project is that the village approved getting a grant for last year. We were awarded a grant to do a vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan by the New York State DEC's estuary program. And right now we've been waiting for a few months to actually have a contract finalized for this. So the project isn't really kicking off yet, but I did want to get everybody prepared for it and also to ask for your input. So you should have this, these notes about it. I shared with you a list of people that I've proposed, or organizations, not necessarily all individuals, to invite to participate in as steering committee members for this. And so these would be, key stakeholders who would be able to help with the shaping up of the outreach and giving vital input about these, the topic that we'll be addressing in this vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. So what it is, the vulnerability assessment will be the first step in this process. the whole project should take about a year to do. And it's for identifying assets in the community and potential impacts of climate change on core climate hazards. And those are increasing temperatures and frequency and duration of heat waves, increasing intensity and extreme weather events, rising sea levels and storm surge, and climate change related disease. So the process will involve convening, organizing, inviting the steering committee members. And if anyone has, I think that probably this letter needs to come out from you, Joe, the invitation. And it'll be going out, we'll be inviting, as you can see here, some of the obvious ones like the Rockland County Department of Emergency Services, Suffolk Hospital. But also we would like to have people from, various parts of the community, and some of the time it isn't easy to actually get these folks involved. So there's a little bit of a challenge, but we really want to get a lot of community input. So after we convene this group and get, have a workshop with this group to get feedback, then we'll proceed to develop outreach for the broader community with their input. And then, move through the process of, conducting a survey, analyzing the results, and then, ultimately moving from the vulnerability assessment to the adaptation plan. So that, which would have recommendations to carry out over time to make the community resilient in the face of these challenges. And we also would like to establish at the end of this a permanent advisory body, because it's something that will take place over time. So that's basically, I just wanted everybody to be clear about what was about to happen as soon as we do have a contract, and get input from you if you had any suggestions now or in the future as we move forward with the project.
I do just have one suggestion. As part of the proposed steering committee, I don't see anyone who may be advocating for folks with disabilities or anyone who's a part of the senior citizen population. I know Meals on Wheels has their community club, so maybe having a representative from there might be helpful. I know Arc of Rockland is also across from in the building that Christopher's used to be in. Maybe having another representative there, just so that we're encompassing those groups as well.
That's such a good suggestion. I just was reading something a couple days ago about the importance of like the Meals on Wheels people in these situations where you have these.
Yeah, they're really like the first people I know doing a lot of check-ins with folks, especially everyone who's homebound. So
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out that when we talk about this, it's easy to think of situations like an emergency, like Hurricane Sandy or something.
Yep.
But there are other things that we have to address that relate to some of the things that were in our climate action plan, which deals with reducing our carbon footprint. But we have some of the same overlapping concerns about buildings and about making energy of, buildings tight and comfortable, making energy more affordable in buildings. Because, people are gonna have to have air conditioning, but they don't want to run their air conditioner because they don't want to pay the bill, things like that, so. It's gonna get a little complicated, and that's why we need to have all these key voices in here and sort of get creative in the way we think about it. So, anybody else?
I was just gonna ask you if, while you're here, if you want to speak to one of our agenda items has to do with the hazard mitigation plan from Rockland County. Is that something that you've been involved with that you want to speak to? Or?
I haven't been involved in it. I mean, I looked at it a couple of years ago, but I think, Chris Jensen will be, we will invite him. He's the hazard mitigation plan guy, and he will be part of the process.
I see something environmental on the agenda. I want to make sure I get your input on it while you're here. So forgive me for broaching that. Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you, Marcy.
Okay,
Thank you, Marcy.
Let us take care of can we get a motion to adopt the minutes from 8/22/24? Can you get that on the table?
Motion. Second.
Any comments or questions or corrections for the minutes from August 22nd?
I have two comments.
Okay.
I think I mentioned it last time. that, comments from the board on various resolution items are not listed. And so they should be noted, I think, it has been done in the past. So, I'm sorry, that's my fault, I didn't get it. So, comments from the board and certainly comments from the public need to be part of the minutes. And also, normally, when we vote, it's usually unanimous, but if there is a split vote, we should be able to see who voted yay, who voted nay, and so forth.
Were you not here the last meeting?
I don't think that the name, yay, nay would be in the minutes, wouldn't it?
It's not saying individually, it's just like.
Didn't say who voted against it. Oh, interesting.
Anyway, those are. I'll come back to the-
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the minutes?
It's just, as far as comments, we're not doing transcriptions. And we do have video. So the degree to which we can get detailed sort of transcription of comments is limited. I just want the trustee to understand
I'm not
that.
saying detail, I'm just saying, general comment, the general gist of what the comment.
He's saying that the minutes used to be a little bit more detailed about what people, they're just covering the general sense of what they were talking about.
Yeah, just bear in mind that sometimes a lot gets said, and the best we can do is create some sort of phrasing that might suggest
I think that's all.
in a general sense.
That's, I think, what we're asking for. Any other questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries, minutes are adopted. We have a series of public hearings, which we cannot begin until 8 o'clock, which is in 10 minutes, but we will try to get through some of our action items, particularly the ones that probably won't generate a lot of discussion. So we'll get through those, and I also wanted to get to one of the communications that we had. So let's get started on for these action items. If you have a comment or a question about the action items, public comment is allowed for the individual action items while we're discussing them. So you don't have to discuss it now. You can wait until we get to the action item that you're curious about, and you can make your comment or your question. Then 6.1 resolution 2024-133 to accept the audited voucher summary. Can I get it on the table?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 6.2, resolution 24-134 to authorize the scheduling of a public hearing to consider a proposed law to place a stop sign on North Midland Avenue at 6th Avenue.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The stop sign has already been placed, but this is now to validate the decision that we have to put it into the record that we have so we just need to do a public hearing to do that. It obviously will not be controversial. The stop sign has been popular now that it was a little bit questionable when people were not used to it, and so they were complaining, but now I think it's generally been accepted that it's there. I drove by it today and everybody stopped and it was lovely. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing will be on Thursday, September 26th at 8 p.m. in Nyack Village Hall at 9 North Broadway. 2024, yes, 2024. Just to be precise. 6.3, resolution 24-135, approving the 22nd annual Life in the Day of the Hudson event in Memorial Park on October 10th, 2024. Can I get it on the table?
Second.
Do we have anybody here speaking to this? Anybody here who's from the schools that is doing this? Okay, no one today. They come and they give their report. It's a wonderful event that they do every year. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Absolutely. We need to do that. 6.4, resolution 24-135 to authorize the creation of two titles in the building department. Can I get it on the table?
Motion. Second.
Okay, Andy, just explain what this is about quickly.
Grab
the mic from there.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to bring our building inspector up, Manny Carbona, who's sorry. She's doing a great job running the building department, but Manny, why don't you say a word or two about the staffing situation and how this plan works for the safety of the public?
Thank you, Rennie. Hello, board. Thank you for having me here today. Yeah, definitely, we're in great need of personnel in the building department. As Andy mentioned, we are doing a lot of things to make the department better. To keep up with all the changes that are being created, as we're gonna speak to some of them today. With all the district and all the things that we're changing. We have created a code enforcement program already, which is working very well, but we're still far from being at 100%. My goal is to get it there as quickly as possible so we can protect this village as best as possible. And in order to do that, we need personnel. Right now, we have the vacancy of an assistant building inspector that retired recently. I went and interviewed 5 inspectors that were on the list. Did not find anyone qualified enough to take the position. And the way that after that interview, I decided probably is best if we hire 2 code enforcement, and train them rather than hiring 1 assistant building inspector that I have to train anyway. They are there, but they need training. Every single one of them needs full training. I gotta go out with them. I gotta take them through the basic training program with the state. I gotta get them certified. It's the whole 9 yards. And that's only 1 person. And most of them are at a point where they probably will be retiring soon anyway. So invest all that time, all the money, and then they probably last here 5 years and go, it's not beneficial to us. Therefore, I request that you give me the opportunity to hire 2 code enforcement officers that we can train and training for NIAC, for our need here from the beginning, from the basic learning for them will be what the village of NIAC needs, according to what the program that we have in place now. We'll train them, we'll get them into the process, and when they're ready, I figure in a year or 2, then we can have them move up to the assistant building inspector position through the taking that test with the county as a promotional test rather than in competitive test. So we only looking at the people that are here in our community. Then move one of them up to the assistant building inspector position and keep the second one as a code enforcement officer.
And there's a little bit of a change in the budgetary item for this, but we can absorb it in the
Yeah,
department.
the budget that the board had created an additional code enforcement 2 position for the building department. So there's money already there for that. But putting 2 of them in there costs a little more than the avoided expense of the assistant building inspector if they both take the health plan, basically. So it brings us to about $15,000 personnel gap, and the treasurer assures us that we can cover that cost.
All right. Any questions or comments?
And as for the code enforcement too, they are not subject to civil service.
They're all tied to civil service, they have to go through that, but we can get them through that, and like I said, we'll be training from the basic.
Yeah.
We might as well do it with 2 rather than 1.
Do you have anyone in mind?
There is a list, we got a list of about 8 people that I will interview each one of them and try to pick 2 of the best out of that.
Okay, and
So that we can.
do we have a residency requirement on any of these positions? No. Cool. Those are my questions.
Anybody else?
Joe?
Yeah, I initially, thought that perhaps we should get a already trained, building inspector, and I spoke to Andy about it, I spoke to, Manny. But I gotta tell you, Manny, your explanation was right on point, so I'm okay with that. That's number 1. Number 2 is it possible to try to find somebody from the village? Is there anybody on the list that lives in the village?
No, there isn't anyone, but it's none of the one that are on the village, they turn it down or they just don't qualify, or for whatever reason, we can't hire them, then that opens it up. And then we can just pick somebody from Rockland County.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I would prefer seeing obviously somebody from the village or somebody from the immediate area.
Yeah, that's a possibility, yes.
Natalie, did you have a point?
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay, I thought she had something.
So. We have a couple already, I'm just thinking about, so we already have a couple assistant building. Inspectors,
We
correct?
have 1 right now.
We have 1. So, and then two more, so, and then you said in a year or two, maybe one of those getting moved up, so what is your plan, to have two assistant building inspectors?
We do need at least two assistant building inspector. They cover all the inspections out in the field. I get to stay in the office to do all the plan review, all the land use. And perhaps one of them can help with some of the basic plan review as well. So I'm not tied up with all of the plan review and to make the process go a lot faster.
And that third one will stay in that position specifically as enforcer.
That is correct. We definitely need one for the village. That person will come every day and all they'll do is 100% court enforcement. And perhaps I'm also thinking of adding some of the fire safety inspection for multifamily dwelling to that person. Maybe not all of them, but maybe they're up to 3 or 4 family dwellings. They get to do those. And that will free up the fire inspector to do other things, the bigger buildings.
So you're saying that right now, being that we're short of staff, everybody, you can't really pay or give the attention to the things you'd like to, because everyone's doing different things?
Well, we have to pay attention to all, but we're just not doing it as quickly as we should.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
we
that's
can,
been my
we
whole
can,
thing.
yeah, that's right.
And who's currently there? I mean, how many people are currently there? I know you, because I see you all the time, and
It's
Paul,
four of
yeah,
us, it's 4 of us. We got Paul, we got David and myself.
David, that's what I
Yeah,
said.
David the other one, and we had Scott, which is the one that recently retired.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Scott, that's why, okay, I was wondering, Scott.
Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Bye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Manny, for coming up, for putting this plan in front of us. We're gonna try to get through the resolutions, then I want to bring somebody up and then we'll get to the public hearings, which can start as of 8 o'clock, but they're gonna take a good bit of time, so I want to get some people, give them an opportunity to get up here and get done before we start with the public hearing. So 6.4, resolution 24-136, approving a permit application for a street closure on South Franklin for Oktoberfest on October 19th, 2024. Can we get on the table? Any comments or questions? You want to speak to this, Travis? Is your event?
I don't really need to, but.
That's okay. You don't have to.
It's very
Does anybody have any questions for Travis about this event?
Will there be any? No, just kidding. No, no, I'm not gonna say no.
Will there be beer? Yeah, I mean, any straws?
Yes, yes. Well, beer, we'll have brats. We're working on something for the kids right now and all that, all the fun stuff.
All right, well, thank you
It's
for putting it together.
always
This is,
great events, so thank you.
and just a reminder, this is an event that is partially funded for the marketing of it is funded by the Nyack Tourism Grant,
Yes.
which can come from the village, so.
I feel like you should have a dunk the mayor thing.
We can work that out.
I'm just saying.
And if I can't attend, then it would be done because that'd be me. And I'm busy that day, so it's like you have to, it's like 10:30 to 6, you'll be in the tank. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Wonderful event, thank you. For
Thank
putting
you,
it together,
everyone.
Travis. And then 6.5, resolution 24-137, authorizing the adoption of the 2024 Rockland County Hazard Mitigation Plan update. Can I get on the table?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments or questions? This is what we were referencing before. This is required by Rockland. All right, can I, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. And let's do 6.6, resolution 24-138. I don't know if any of these people are here. Resolution of the village board approving appointments to the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Grant Committee. Can I get on the table?
Motion.
This is for the DRI, which is it's between a $4 million and $10 million grant for downtown revitalization. We've applied the last few years. Most of the people here have been on the committee before to help us put together our proposal. I don't know if anybody's here today who's being proposed for the committee, but you can see it's an august group of people from the village. Any comments or questions about it?
Who are the new people on the board on this? Everyone looks
Andy
the
would
same
know.
as last.
I think the new person would be Susan Wilming, who I just want to say was a real clutch performer for our last go around. And she was just superbly helpful getting our presentation together, the video and helping. She really volunteered very heavily and she has an exciting project as part of the portfolio as well.
And we're having our first meeting on Monday.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. I'm gonna hold the last two resolutions, 6.7 and 6.8, the action items. We'll take them together after the public hearing. But I did want to bring up, Laura Greenberg, who had sent a communication. It's not in the communication list, but I did get a communication. Please come up. You have somebody with you that wants to come talk to this. It's about an issue with the Claremont that she wanted to address with us. There's a microphone probably up there. Just make sure it's on.
Good evening. So I'm Laura Greenberg.
Put the mic up to your, and hold it that way.
From Claremont Condominiums, your neighbor down the block. And I sincerely thank you for taking a few minutes out of what I know is a very full agenda. So I was the one that said I will not speak more than 3 minutes, so you can start the clock. No, very well. So I am here to discuss a situation that has been going on for about 2.5 years. And we have yet to resolve it. So I want to bring it before you just for the point of awareness. There is a municipal wastewater pipe, as identified on the MS4 map, that starts on Broadway and it runs down Bird Street. At the very end, it goes under a piece of Claremont property, the parking lot, and then it terminates in the river.
If you said wastewater, I think you mean
Wastewater,
stormwater.
Stormwater, that's right.
You're not dumping wastewater.
Second one.
Storm.
Anyway, stormwater drain. My point is, as with any drain, in addition to the water, debris comes down, especially in a 36-inch pipe. And from time to time, the debris builds up and it gets clogged. And when it does, all that water and sludge comes up through the drains, goes into our parking lot. And over the years, the parking lot has sustained a lot of damage. Now, for several years, when this would occur, the village took care of it. They would send out either the DPW or a contractor and they cleared the drains. A few years ago, when we requested the service again, we were denied. And we were denied because we were told it was private property and that the village couldn't touch it because there was no easement. So in an effort to get this resolved, I've tried several approaches. First, I tried face-to-face communication. Didn't work. Okay, next we tried legal action. I eventually dropped that because frankly, our attorney wanted us to file for damages. And I said, we do not want to claim damage. We just want the pipe cleared. Third and finally, I have tried a cost-sharing approach. Now, I've got to say, so far, it hasn't exactly been cost-sharing because as of today, Claremont is the only one that's assumed the cost. But we actually went ahead and paid Cook Contractors, as a contractor you use, to jet the pipes on our property only, of course. They couldn't get all the way through. The very end of the pipe is damaged, preventing a lot of the water from going into the river. They suggested the pipe needs to be repaired. I then suggested that, again, we cost share. Claremont would agree to pay for the excavation of the pavement so the pipe could be removed and replaced, and we would pay to have it repaved. But we're asking the village to take care of their pipe. So I put this to you. If you need more details on this, I will be happy to come back at a time where all of you have the time to question me accordingly. And I would only say that if this doesn't get resolved, we're really going to have no choice but to try and resolve it ourselves. And we really don't want to do that. So I asked that you consider this.
Thank you. This gentleman.
Yes.
He can have a couple minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
He's a lot better than I am. Wait, the microphone.
You speak with your hands.
He's our superintendent. He has a lot more detail than I do. He has been there and filmed every flood we've had. He's been there with the contractor who's done the jetting. He himself has gone into a rowboat in the river looking for the outpipe of the drain. So,
Here's what I would ask.
Yes.
You've made a proposal to me kind of informally about what you would like a specific, what you would like the village to do and what you're willing to do as part of that. Could you do me a favor and put that, it doesn't have to be formal, does it just could be an email to me that you say, here's what we'd like to do. It doesn't have to be a lawyer, although you can, if you want to have a lawyer, you can obviously have a lawyer do it. But just propose to us what you would like us to do so we can take it up, and then we'll talk to Andy about it. Okay,
thank you,
I
Joe.
can't promise anything, but we will talk about it. Okay, all right, did he want to speak? Is it, you said yes, and now you spoke again.
I'm just here about.
You're here more.
Yeah,
I've got a question, what, so I can understand, what is the global cost?
Yeah, I wanted to know that.
How much are you spending, or how much do you expect the village to share in terms of?
What would be the total cost of the repair? So have you gotten that estimation yet?
Okay.
Ballpark it?
not Jeff. We thought we did. And I'll be honest with you, if the village continues to refuse to repair the municipal pipe, we're gonna have to find our own solution. Which I will tell you this, we are at no time going to tap into your municipal pipe. But we will fix our own drainage situation. The problem is gonna be though, that all of the blockage that's up to our property is gonna remain there. So it's eventually gonna back up Bird Street and it's gonna come out all of the other drains.
But we don't have a ballpark yet of how much it's gonna cost.
We got a price on the wrong width pipe.
Okay.
So we are awaiting
Okay,
another
if
quote.
you get that information, can you send that to us? Because that's obviously, if this is a $300,000 item versus a $20,000 item, that's a different conversation.
Of
okay.
stuff going on.
All right, so let's get that, give me that email, I will forward it to the board as well as to Andy, and then we can take up a conversation about it, okay?
Joe, thank you
Let's
very
get
much,
that-
and thank you for your
Start taking it
time.
as well. I know, I'm resolving that, and we're gonna move on to the next thing. All right, it's 8 o'clock, so we are able to start our public hearing, our first public hearing, which is set to begin no later than 8 o'clock. Is for good cause eviction. What do I have to do to start the public hearing? Just a motion?
Yes.
Motion to open the public hearing. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing? All right, that was, you got that, Donna and Pascal?
I do.
Cause eviction, correct?
For good cause eviction. Okay, comments and questions, and if you have public comment, please, be prepared. Linda, do they identify the public comment? They sign in?
Well, why don't we give an explanation?
Yeah, let's talk about it, and then I just want to make sure that people are ready if they want to come up. Do they identify who wants to speak about it?
Yes.
Okay. Pascal, I know you know a lot about this. You want to talk about it? Introduce the concept?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So good cause eviction, it was done this year through the state assembly. The state finally passed good cause eviction. It was mandatory for New York City, but it was an opt-in option for every other municipality. So there are a few municipalities that have begun to opt into the program. What it does is it keeps rent caps between, I believe, 5 and 10% as a reasonable place for that's a reasonable place for rent to be, along with places for tenants to challenge their rent increases. For everyone who might be, if non-payment of rent is still an evictable cause, nuisance or damage to property is still, you can still evict a tenant for those reasons. So it just puts in more protections for tenants so that they're not, subject to being pulled out of their apartments or not having their leases renewed without really giving a reason for why. Allowing folks who have within a certain income to also opt into good cause eviction. I think I have everything. Am I missing anything, Andy?
There's a fact sheet in the packet if anybody wants to pull it.
Even better.
And just to so it applies generally to buildings built before 2009, so it doesn't apply to buildings built after 2009 for their first 30 years of operation. There are exemptions, so an owner-occupied building with 10 or fewer units is exempt. And then there are two items that if you look at the packet, you'll see that there's we have to fill in the blank on two items that are part of the good cause eviction statute. It gives flexibility to the municipality to do two things. One of them is that there is an exemption based on the number of units owned by a particular landlord. That the state statute is set at an exemption at 10 units. So if a landlord owned 10 units or fewer, the landlord would be exempt from the application of the good cause eviction statute. However, as people have come to get to understand the workings of the statute, the municipalities that have passed good cause eviction have taken the option which is provided to them in the statute to lower that exemption from 10 to either 1 or 2. And the reason for that is that the nature of the good cause eviction statute is that it's a defense to someone who has a rent increase imposed upon them that would be above the statutory limits of the good cause eviction. The tenant is then under the obligation to challenge that that rent increase, but it seems that there's a loophole insofar as how would the tenant know how many buildings the landlord owns, and the landlord could very easily have multiple buildings owned under multiple LLCs. In fact, I would say it's very common for building owners to own buildings through LLCs rather than owning in their personal capacity. And so it might be difficult for a tenant to be able to determine whether a landlord would be exempt. So in many jurisdictions, including the 4 of the 5 cities that so far have opted in, they've reduced that number to 1. And in one case, they limited it to 2. The other area where there's an exemption is at a price point that if a unit price is more than 245% above the fair market value of similarly sized apartments, in the area, that unit would not be subject. In other words, if it's too expensive, it would not be subject to the good cause eviction statute. That's also a percentage that can be adjusted by the municipality that adopts good cause eviction. So we could go from, and in fact, again, the municipalities that have adopted it have raised that exemption from 245 to, in some cases, I think as high as 345%, which would be 3.5 times what the fair market value of the rent is, which is set by HUD every year for I think the county. So we have 3 decisions to make. We have to decide whether we want to opt into the good cause eviction generally, and then we need to decide on what the exemption should be for how many units a landlord could own, how few units they can own to be exempt, and then what the fair market value exemption will be, whether it be 245% or something higher. Those are the issues before us. All right, did I get that basically correct? Everybody clear on that? All right, do we have any comments? If anybody has a comment they want to line up at the, do we have any comments from the board? No, what are you pointing to?
Yes, lots of questions from the board. I know that it's on the packet, we have the grid. But how does this jive with the ETPA? Let's see, we're talking about opting in with the ETPA, and how would that change it or affect it?
That's a good question. We have tried twice to opt into the ETPA, the Emergency Tenant Protections Act. The first time we had a flaw in our survey. The second time the survey did not support a finding of a rent emergency, I think is what it's called. The ETPA applies to a different class of buildings. They don't conflict in any way. It's very consistent with good cause eviction, in that if we did adopt ETPA, then the rent increases would be limited by the much lower increase allowed by ETPA than allowed by good cause eviction. Because the ETPA increases have generally, which are set by a Rockland County board, have generally been set between 0 and 2% of a yearly increase, whereas the increase under the good cause eviction is between 5 and 10%, based on the CPI at the time. The other difference is that the ETPA only applies to buildings built before 1974, whereas the good cause eviction applies to a much larger group of buildings built before 2009. Also, the ETPA, it's not an automatic opt-in. We can just opt in at our own choice to opt into good cause eviction. For ETPA, we do need that vacancy survey to show a rent emergency. And for the ETPA, there are no exemptions. It applies to buildings with 6 or more units. We've proposed it for, I believe, 12 or more units, but it can't be applied to a building with fewer than 6 units. But there are no exemptions based on how many units an owner owns, and there's no exemption for owner occupancy the way there is for the good cause eviction. So they are different, but they are complementary. Mostly what would happen is that ETPA would cover, all the building, almost, I think it would cover, they would have complementary, they wouldn't quite cover exactly the same set of buildings, because there's a different, one's 2009, built before 2009, one's built before 1974, and the other difference is that ETPA only applies to 6 or more units, or in NIAC's case, the way we proposed to 12 or more units. But they do complement each other. They don't conflict in any way. There's some buildings that would be covered by both, some buildings that would be covered by one and not the other, and some buildings that wouldn't be covered by either.
So what happens if, let's say, a building built in 1970?
Yeah.
Okay, and they have 12 apartments.
Yeah.
And we opt into the good cause eviction statute, and we also succeed in declaring a rental emergency. So we have 2 conflicting.
Well, they're not conflicting.
Well, there's 2 different rates. One
No.
rate.
One preempts the other, so if the building is, as you said, it would fall under the ETPA. I mean, good cause eviction could possibly be a backstop if it got exempt, but it meets the ETPA standards.
So the ETPA would control.
With control, so that would be
Yeah.
the lower rent increases.
Yes.
For
Yes.
the county board.
Yes.
Yeah. I see.
Okay. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from the board at this point?
All right, let's go to the list. If you're not on the list, we're gonna take the questions as they came on the sign up sheet. So go to the sign up sheet and then if anybody else wants to speak up, you can go ahead and do that. We'll keep the timer at 3 minutes because I know this is a very weighty topic that people want to speak about.
Alex?
Would like Michael McKee to speak. He didn't sign in because there wasn't a sign-in sheet.
You can both speak. I'm not gonna deny Mike. Mike sends us his remarks in advance as well. Alex, go ahead. We'll let Mike go at the end.
Good evening again. I'm Alex Borstein. I'm the executive director of the Legal Aid Society. Do I need it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could use the people in the back here.
Okay, so.
There.
Hello.
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, so first of all, let me thank you for letting me speak tonight on this. And I'm particularly grateful because this is something that's really dear to me because of what I do. I have represented tenants in evictions since 1978. And I represented tenants in evictions in Rockland County since 1985. I came out of law school, started my first job in legal aid in 78. I knew very little about how law affects real people, but it doesn't take much to figure out that evictions and being dispossessed is incredibly harmful to people who are being evicted, to their children, and to the community at large. Which is why I never understood very quickly why New York allows landlords right now to evict people not to renew their lease for any reason and no reason. That just didn't seem just to me. Because nobody should be subject to arbitrariness. Just because the landlord decides they don't like them. There should be a reason. And that's what the good cause eviction law does. And I would urge you to opt into the good cause eviction law. Because I've seen, you probably have seen it too, just devastating effects of people who are evicted. That's number one. Number two, I don't understand the income limitations on just the part for opting in, that whatever it is, be it 245%, be it whatever it is, because the Legal Aid Society doesn't represent affluent clients.
It's not income.
It's not
No,
income,
it's the rent. the
it's
rent.
a rental price,
Yeah, I
the
know,
rent
it's a-
price, yeah.
Right, 145% of the rental per market rent in right now in Rockland County for one bedroom is 24.51. And my position is that even though we don't represent people who are quote unquote rich, they shouldn't be subject to arbitrariness anymore than people who are poor. It's still destructive. It's still very, very, very hard on a family and the community. As far as the number of units, same argument essentially. The landlord who owns one unit can be just as arbitrary, and I've certainly seen that, as anybody who owns 6 units. And at some point, limiting in a way that would exclude some landlords doesn't make sense. I would urge you to adopt a resolution when you adopt the law that's going to be 1 or more units. 1 should be the limitation, and that's it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Mike's up list. Everybody's gonna get a chance to speak, so I'll just let him know. And Mike also sent you, yes, can we get those remarks put into the meeting? Thank you, along with what he's been saying here.
Mayor Ryan, members of the board, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to testify. First of all, I want to thank you for having such a lovely village. It's been a pleasure to spend an afternoon here today on such a beautiful day. Secondly, I want to commend you for your ongoing efforts to bring rent and eviction protections to the tenants of Nyack. I know you must be frustrated by the ETPA impasse. I know the tenants in Nyack are frustrated, but you know what? The real estate lobby's intent is for people to get discouraged and to give up. And you must not do that, and the tenants must not do that. You have to take the long view. Tenants PAC is a statewide organization. We work with elect pro-tenant candidates all over the state. We helped flip the state senate from red to blue 6 years ago. We helped get rid of the rogue Democrats in the Independent Democratic Conference, so-called, who aligned themselves with the Republicans, even when Republicans were a numerical minority in the state senate, and prevented the Democrats from controlling the Senate. I'm here to support good cause eviction. This bill will give 2 very important protections to tenants. One is a very solid, concrete protection, which is protection against arbitrary and retaliatory eviction. No longer will landlords be able to evict tenants for any reason or no reason. The other protection has to do with rents. That's a little more iffy. It's not exactly the strongest protections we could have had. Our original bill was much stronger than this. Instead of 8.82, our original bill would have been 3% or the CPI, whichever was lower. I have to say 8.82 is an extraordinarily high benchmark. It's not a cap on rent increases. It is a benchmark above which tenants can claim the rent increase is unreasonable. And it does not give tenants the right to renew their lease. That's a common misconception. It gives tenants a very good tool to negotiate a lease renewal. And we have already seen, since the law has been in effect in New York City in April, that many tenants have been successful in using these protections to force landlords to a more reasonable rent increase and renew their lease. But it's just a tool. I want to talk about the original bill and why this was so much better than what we have. My first and biggest gripe with the compromise that we were forced to agree to, thanks to Governor Kathy Hochul, was to make this protection optional for tenants outside New York City. There is a syndrome in state government that tenants upstate don't count, don't deserve the same kind of protections, and it's simply wrong. It is immoral. So for this to be mandatory in New York City and optional outside the city is really unfortunate. Secondly, there are so many exemptions in the law of tenants who will not be covered, and there's nothing you can do about that. Whatever you do here tonight, there are going to be many Nyack tenants who are not going to be covered by this law, and you can't stop that. Now, I know I'm over time, but just let me urge you to adopt the one, no more than one standard for the portfolio size. And I have to correct the mayor just a little bit.
Thank you, please do.
Your description was really very, very good of both the ETPA and the good cause eviction, but all 6 municipalities that have opted into good cause eviction so far have established the no more than one. The confusion is that the Kingston law is worded in a way that makes it look like it's 2, but it says the law shall cover any landlord who owns 2 or more units. So that same thing basically, but
I
it's
see.
confusingly,
Okay.
it's confusingly
More than
worded.
one versus 2 or more.
I don't know who drafted their bill, but it's confusing.
Being a dentist.
Yeah, and I would also urge you to adopt the 345% fair market rent standard, which all but one of the other municipalities have. I would urge you to adopt the 345% fair market rent appeal. I know this sounds like an extraordinarily high rent that no one will ever end up paying, but the purpose here is that Governor Hochul wanted to exclude higher income tenants. I think that's wrong. I think it is incorrect to say that high income tenants don't deserve basic protections as much as any other tenant. But this was the legislature's way of sort of punting that so even though it is probably, as Mayor Rand indicated to me in a conversation earlier this week, probably no one is going to be paying 245% of fair market rent at this point. But you're going to be talking about whatever you do here tonight is going to be in effect for 10 years. Because this law sunsets in 10 years. We will have to fight all over again in Albany to get a new good cause eviction bill. It's capped at 10 years.
So
So
we have to.
rents are going to go up over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael, I have a question. You mentioned that there are a number of workarounds. You mentioned a number of workarounds that can cause evictions or prevent tenants from being evicted. Can you expound on that?
Workaround.
Well, you said that this law is not perfect, that there are
A number of exemptions. The mayor
Exemptions, yeah, let's
indicated
think about
some
those
of them. I mean,
exemptions.
it's logical to not cover rent regulated or public housing or Mitchell-Lama housing, things like that. They have superior protections already.
Okay.
But they have, 10 units of 11 or fewer units that are owner occupied. I don't think there are many buildings like that, but those tenants will not be covered, no matter what you do. Tenants who rent as part of their employment, they won't be covered. Manufactured homes, I know you don't have that in NIAC, but it's a big part of the affordable housing supply statewide. They're not covered. These are all exceptions that Governor Hochul insisted on inserting into the law.
I'm just worried about the small mom and pop landlords. Let's say convert part of their house into,
They've already been.
If it's owner occupied,
Yeah.
if they live in the building and there's 10 or fewer units, they're exempt.
they're exempt.
Yeah.
11.
So there's no, so reducing,
It's confusing.
so reducing the requirement down to 1 unit. That is not
That's ownership of 1 unit.
ownership.
Doesn't mean living in one. If you live in the building, if there were 10 or fewer units, so fewer than 11, 10 or fewer units, the building is exempt. All right. But the other, that's a different exemption. That's an exemption for owner occupied properties. There's an exemption also for landlords that own, the standard exemption in the state statute is 10 or fewer units, 10 or fewer rental units. The problem is that how is the tenant supposed to know how many units that landlord owns? And it's the tenant's obligation to be able to establish that the rental increase is beyond the threshold and should be limited by good cause eviction statutes, which is why everybody who's adopted this has adopted it to anybody who owns any unit. Can I just speak to this? Because I want to.
I share some of your concerns about, one of the things we did with the good cause, with the ETPA is that we limited it to 12 unit buildings or more because we didn't want to hit small landlords. But the difference to me is that ETPA really has a very, has a much more rigid rental restriction than the good cause eviction. Good cause eviction is 5% plus CPI, which at this point is a little over 8%, like you said, or 10%, whatever's higher. I mean, listen, I've been in real estate for a long time. I know real estate, I know landlords. A rental increase of 8% on a yearly basis is not unreasonable, even for a small landlord. That's not, I mean, I don't know many residential, and whenever I've had residential properties, I can't remember a time when I raised the rent by more than 3 or 4%. 8% is a pretty substantial leeway to give the landlord, even a small landlord who only owns 1 unit. And that's why I'm generally in favor of this, because I feel as if the percentage increase that is allowed in good cause eviction, I feel it is relatively moderate. Mike doesn't agree with it. Mike would like it to be much lower, as he said, but I may not be in quite the same camp as Mike in terms of how heavy this would hit the landlords. I think this is not that big a hit to landlords, in that it's manageable for the average landlord. That's why.
Yeah. Can I respond to Mr. Collins?
Let us make this, let me respond to me. Just to clarify, again, there's a lot of things going on here. So if it's owner occupied building.
Yeah.
That has up to 10.
11 or less.
11 or less, but one of those units is occupied by the owner.
Yes.
Okay, they are exempt?
Yes.
Okay.
So if someone who owns a 2
2-family, they live in one of them, they rent the other one out, they're exempt. If it's
Just
4-family, they're exempt.
also, all you're giving in a good cause eviction is you're giving tenants a defense.
Yeah.
It's not self-enforcing like ETPA. The tenant has to be willing and brave enough to stand up to the landlord and say, no, I will not sign that lease because that rent increase is excessive, or will refuse to move out for invalid reasons. And I've been doing this work for 54 years, and I can tell you from experience, there are many tenants who will not have the courage to do that. They will move even when they are protected, or they will sign the lease and pay the increase that should not be that high. So this is a defense. It's not like rent control. It's not even close.
I have a quick question for you,
Yes, ma'am.
before you leave. So in your opinion, I'm just asking, would you think that, or cases that you've worked on, do they do both the ETPA alongside of the good cause eviction? And is that
Yes.
what your recommendation
Well,
is?
I think you should continue your efforts to enact ETPA, but
Mhm.
remember, if a tenant lives in an ETPA building, they are exempt from good cause eviction. This law exempts rent-regulated tenants, rent control, rent stabilized, Mitchell-Lama housing, public housing, project-based section housing, any government agent, any government controlled regulated housing.
Uh-huh.
Because all of those programs have superior rent and eviction protections for good cause eviction. So if you were to enact ETPA, the buildings that are 6 or more, or 12 or more, whatever you choose to do, and I would urge you to consider 6 or more, those would be regulated in a much more stringent way, as the mayor has described. Until you enact ETPA, the only protection any tenant in Nyack is going to have is going to be the weaker protections, but essential protections, of good cause eviction.
Thank you.
It's not like a backstop.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have more public comment?
Then no more public comment on the good cause eviction? Was anybody else here to speak about good cause?
No, I just had a question.
Yeah, that's Minerva. Park.
Minerva Parker.
Yeah, I just had a question. When the mayor said, there were examples that would not be covered by either. You said there are some.
Yeah, some buildings would not be covered if they're built after, the good cause eviction doesn't apply to them.
No, what,
It doesn't apply to buildings built after 2009.
right, but you said some will be under one, some will be under the other,
Yeah.
and then there are gonna be some that aren't covered by either.
Yes, the buildings
Are there
built,
any examples in Nyack that are not gonna be covered?
yeah, all those buildings that got built in the last 4 or 5 years up on Upper Main would not be covered. The patio would not be covered. Any new building that's built in the last 15 years would not be covered for the first 30 years of its life. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, but the legislation has a built-in, was that?
It's a 10-year sunset. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think it's in the first 30 years of their existence, the buildings are exempt. So the idea is that when we don't want to discourage people from building new construction, so we give them a little leeway, and then after the building's been on the market for 30 years, it now gets subject to the good cause eviction. So all these buildings that were built on Upper Main, 27, 28 years from now, they'll be subject to good cause eviction as well, but not until then. Anybody else for good cause eviction? Yes, Taylor.
And
They think I'm gonna be over 3 minutes?
I have my concerns.
I don't know.
You watch your laptop up too.
yeah, he couldn't remember it, so you have to read.
I can't remember most of them, so I just wrote it down. So Taylor Mandelbaum, 19 Dickinson Avenue. I come as a supporter of tenants and tenant rights, which is not a surprise to anybody here on this board. But I'm of course supporting good cause eviction, and I'm happy that we are taking this up and hopeful that we are going to get a vote in the affirmative. I did want to mention, just as Michael had mentioned, 8.82% is still very high. Think of it in terms of, 2451 becomes 2667, becomes 2902. Like it's a good amount of money if you increase it at that maximum every year. So this is a bare minimum, and I want to communicate that it is important, but it is still a minimum. And I hope that we can continue to advocate for ETPA and other issues and other laws that protect tenants at various levels through whatever patchwork that this ends up becoming. I also wanted to advocate specifically for making sure that the non-owner occupied definition of a small landlord sticks with, like Michael had said, one unit, who owns no more than one total unit within the state of New York, based on the let me skip over here. So basically modifying the maximum fair market rent cap as well from 245 to 345%. I think that it's important in the sense of we want to make sure everybody's covered under this law, and we also want to make sure that inflationary pressure over the next 10 years, for whatever reason, it's not likely that we're going to have rents over $70,000. It's very high, but it still makes sure that in any case, for any situation, that we are not putting people in a position where they're basically the community is going to be churned, where folks will leave who've been here for a while with deep roots, wealthy or not wealthy. Also, there's a few things that I wanted to mention that I don't think folks had communicated yet. Firstly, Michael had briefly mentioned it, but this is just the ability for tenants to mount a defense legally. A lot of tenants don't understand, as I don't understand, the nuances of law. It is complicated. It is intimidating. So I think that the board needs to understand that even though good cause eviction is a useful foundational tool, because of that, an awareness and discomfort pursuing legal options for whatever reason, having that knowledge gap is a problem. So the board, if enacted good cause eviction, should work to establish town hall style sessions in the village akin to know your rights trainings. In these trainings, you would give individuals the opportunity to learn, see what you can do in these cases. And also the village should provide resources in Village Hall and online with the brand new website that I hear you guys are getting. Or at least the NIAC.gov, which is nice. So one more thing, I would just employ that the village reviews what an owner-occupied dwelling is in our municipality to ensure that that aspect of the law is not able to be taken advantage of due to the unique makeup of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
I want to make sure we get any public comment on this issue. If anybody wants to speak to this, who is, yes, Alex, but you already spoke. We gave you 3. You know, be very quick. You don't have to even come up because you're not going to get it. Come up. Give me a hard time.
As Taylor said, it's complicated.
Yeah.
One thing I did not say is this: right now, your lease expires. The landlord can just give you a notice saying your lease expired, you're out. Now, in order to, with the new law, they would have to give you the reason why they don't want to renew the lease, putting the burden on the landlord, as opposed to the tenant saying it's retaliatory because I complained to the health department. It's because of my race. Right now, it's the tenant's burden to come up with defenses. At least if you pass the law, the landlord would have to tell you why they're doing it, and that's a
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Are there any reasons why a landlord can, tell a tenant that they're evicted or they won't renew the lease? Beyond the, rental, let's say non-payment of rent?
There are many reasons that are listed right in the good code statute, but you have a whole, I don't know how many paragraphs, a great many. Violating the lease, not paying, obviously, being objectionable. There are many reasons that you can still use
Right.
for non-renewal, for terminating a tenancy. But it's the landlord's burden to put that out there for the court. Thank you.
All right.
There's someone
Yeah.
else, Gina.
Gina, come on up.
Prepared, I didn't.
Well, just come up, you're prepared.
Just say like, you know, I live.
Yeah.
Just say.
Make sure you grab a mic.
First and last name.
Thank you.
First and last name, and
Yeah.
you live in
Okay,
the village.
very
do you live in-
nervous. Just tired. That's-
But
Thank you, Judge. Nice to meet you here and the panel here. What an honor. I'm waking up now. I'm 33 years old. I'm Gina Marie Angles. I grew up in Rockland County and I've lived in the same apartment for 13 years, actually. So I have experienced, you know, I've seen changes, especially the last 4 years. You know, with just, you know, financially, how we're surviving these days, things are more expensive. And just this past year, my rent was raised 8%. And I was able to do the math and I was like, wow, that is quite a bit now. And it just, I think it was the last 3 years, it's been raised probably about 8% every year. And I just don't really have much stability and I try to renew my lease for like a year or two so I can have it steady, but they keep me month to month. And I need to learn more about all these laws, but I do think it's really important that they figure something out with that. So that is a really, for a lot of people had to leave. They really can't eat. For people that have lived here like me for 13 years and I love this town, it really could, it's, my mom's helping me with my rent. Like I have 2 jobs, I have a small business. I'm also a direct support professional. And it is really hard to survive on your own as a single person, not married. And I want to make a change and help also in this, so I would like to learn more and present to you that I'm in support of Michael and
Alex.
I think I presented a great case to you, so that's what I'd like to say for now, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, that's speaking to the point of Taylor saying that it's great to have, I think, tenants in some sort of informational session so that you know what your rights are.
That's another thing.
And
yeah.
to learn
That's
all
really
of that. So thank you,
Yeah.
Taylor, for
Yeah,
bringing
that's
that up. And
wonderful.
you're a great point of what he was trying to.
Yes, it's very important. Thank you. Thank you.
You did great.
Thank you so much, Donna. What an
All
honor.
right, I think it's time to take it up. Any comments from the board?
Any comments from the board, what they're thinking? Remember, we have 3 decisions. One, do we want to pass this legislation? And if we do want to pass this legislation, where do we want to set the number of units that would allow an owner to become exempt? And where do you want to set the price at which a unit would be exempt, because it would be too far high, it would be too high, actually, that it would be exempt unless it goes above a certain price point, well above the average fair market rent for the area. Anyway, I'll hand the mic off.
So yes, I'm generally in agreement with the law. I have worked for the state and I do agree with Michael. The bill that was not ultimately passed was the better bill. It gave way more protections. It just did so much more for tenants. So yeah, this is I guess the kind of compromise. I see it as more of a starting place than a real compromise. I do also agree it should be 1 unit or more. I don't want to give any sort of credence to the LLC loophole for anyone to use. And I mean, we just encompass the most people we can. The more people we're getting under this law, the better. It's just better for all of our tenants. For anyone who thinks it's like Social Security, it is for everyone, as much as many people we can get it for. So we should just try to encompass as many people as possible under this. And at the same time, I do want to reiterate that we should not stop fighting for the ETPA. I know we don't have any plans to.
We don't have any plans to stop.
Yeah, to stop fighting for it, yes, we don't have any plans to stop fighting for it, so I don't want anyone to think that we're just doing this and that's it, you know, there are other things that we're still working on, especially with the ETPA, so that's all.
I too am totally in favor of this law. And as well as no more than one unit. And totally still on board. Hopefully, we are still fighting and going, forging ahead for the ETPA as well.
So we represent all the residents of the village, not only homeowners, but also renters. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to help protect the renters from whatever's been happening in the market. And I am 100% in favor of the good cause eviction law. And I agree, one unit. And I don't know about the upside in terms of the percentage, you know, that's something we could talk about. But definitely, we should go for it. And obviously, as stated, the ETPA should always be on our minds.
We all are in agreement for this local law. And so our goal here is to protect everyone, like Joe just mentioned. And so I too am going to have to see and say, let's move on and let's move forward and make sure that we protect our tenants.
All right, I already gave my opinion earlier that I was in favor of the law. I also would agree to the applying it to anyone who owns one or more units. So basically any landlord would apply to every landlord. And the reason I'm in favor of it is that I really do believe it's not an unreasonable restriction on rental increases. And again, it only gives rise to a ability of a tenant to claim the protections if the landlord raises their rent above the threshold. All right, with that, so we generally have 5 in favor of passing it. The next issue is we're okay with one. You said one.
More than
It's one or more. If they own one unit.
More than.
All right, wait, hold on. Just get it clear. It's, the idea is that the tenant's not gonna know how many units the person owns, so it's one or more.
Yeah.
Not more than one, it's one. If they own one unit, they're covered by this. That would be the way the statute would read. All right, does this, I don't know the statute in front of me right now, so what does it say right now? What's the blank say?
Owns no more than blank total units within the state of New York, and that's copy and pasted right from the statute itself.
All right, then put it as one, no more than one.
Okay. We can just put it in.
Make sure that the legalese is.
No, just, there's a blank there, put the number one in the blank.
So you got that, Andy? No more than one, we're sticking the word one in there.
In the blank, where the blank says,
Number two.
it's very, it's yellow.
We're doing a resolution to adopt this next meeting, right?
This is what we're doing, we're adopting at the next meeting?
Right, I mean, we don't have a resolution, can we vote on it without having a,
I did draft the resolution for you.
but it's not on the agenda because
That's
I
fine.
knew there was discussion tonight.
Gotcha.
So why don't we just finalize it for next meeting?
All right, so let's finalize it for 2 weeks from
Yeah, I'd
now.
like the instructions as to how they want to finalize the resolution.
All right, are we good with 3:45? We're good with what? Are we good with 3:45 instead of 2:45?
I'm going with 345.
So basically make it apply to more units, not allow the units to price out of the restriction.
It's all academic.
It's all academic because it really is, even 245 is really an expensive 1-bedroom apartment. And I don't know if anything in Rockland even sustains that, but I think as a matter of protecting against inflation and whatnot, 345. So 1 and then 345, we're good with that?
Yes.
All right, so that's the instruction on to make that for get that on the resolution for the next meeting. And I think we were under the impression that we'd be able to pass this today, so that's unfortunate. All right, but we will, there's every intention to pass it at the next meeting.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
the public comment open until then?
Do we do public comment?
You don't have
You
to.
don't have to?
You don't have to.
All right, motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, public hearing is now closed on good cause eviction. moving on to the 8:05. Public hearing on the DMU2 zone. This is to me, can I get this on, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All right, we have talked about this for about 6 months. This is the result of 6 months of discussion and deliberation and back and forth. The legislation is now, we don't, this is another one we don't have a resolution for.
Yeah, because it's,
All right.
like you very nicely summarized, we've been working on this and we're still working on it.
All right, is any comment or question on this from the board beyond just,
There was a opinion from the planning board, right? Yes, but it hasn't been, it hasn't been put into words yet, but the summary, I can give you, I don't want to go really there's no detail, it's being typed up. It'll be distributed tomorrow. The DMU2, Joe, you were there, they didn't like something. You didn't like the 75? Yes, thank you, they wanted to stay. It's at 25 feet now, but 50 feet. Yes, they want to compromise and make it 50, so where it says widening the distance of the street frontage of a lot from 25 feet to 75 feet, it's currently 25. They would like it to go from 25 to 50.
This was a suggestion that we got from the planning, no, but this is, the 75 was a suggestion from Bob. From the plan, that's where it came from, it didn't come from us, so I'm fine with 50. All right, let's get back on it, is everybody okay with 50 instead of 75?
You're not going to adopt it tonight, but
We're not gonna adopt it tonight, but we wanna get the resolution so we can adopt in 2 weeks and we can end this national nightmare.
Sure, yeah, I don't have a, Joe, you have more of a preference than I do.
well, here's the point. The point is that we didn't want, in your words, to get these slivers that go, okay, and so 50 feet, in my opinion, is still a sliver of the building. 75 feet is more substantial, but I mean, the only reason I would do it is I would defer to the planning board that they deal with these things on a more regular basis. Using your words, this is not a hill all die.
Not a hill I'll die on.
A lot on that.
There's a lot of hill,
I say that a lot, there's a lot of hills that I'm not willing to die on. All right, are we, so any public comments on this issue? Is there anybody that feels very strongly about 50 versus 75 feet? Or 25 feet for that matter? Or anything in between? Nope, okay. Are we good with bringing it down to 50 and then doing a resolution at the next meeting?
Yes.
Everybody's good? All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor? No one's opposed, that public hearing is closed. Let's talk about the manufacturing zone. Can we open a public hearing that was scheduled for no earlier than 8:10 on the manufacturing zone? Motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
All right, anybody here from the public comments make a comment on this? All right, so let's discuss it ourselves. Where do we stand with this? What's the situation?
This is probably the most in flux is the word I've been using. Where we are right now, there's, I don't know, Andy, how much am I able to share?
All right, let's continue the public hearing to next meeting.
No, and,
Let's just continue it because this has been fluxing all week in terms of what we're gonna do.
There's
There was
been
a,
legal discussions I've been having with the village administrator, Andy, I don't know how much he's comfortable with me sharing, so do you have a summary of where we're at with the Ann zoning district? Hotel Nyack and assisted living facilities, et cetera, multifamily. I can tell you this, the planning board does not, their written advisory opinion recommendation, which you will get distributed tomorrow, Monday, is they did not want multifamily dwellings, correct? They did not want multifamily dwellings, and they, I don't think they were too much in favor of the living because of the rooftop deck.
Because of what?
all right, they had a meeting with the planning board. The planning board, we sent them to get a recommendation from the planning board. We haven't seen the recommendation from the planning board, so I would suggest that we continue the public hearing to the next meeting. Can I get a motion to continue the public hearing?
Second.
Oh, we have to do the date at the time.
Can we continue the public hearing until our next meeting on September 26th at no earlier than
Well, do we have? one?
8:05, no earlier than 8:05 at the Village Hall 2024. Is that enough?
Perfect.
I did. All right, we're good with that for the public hearing. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so now we get to the no later than 8:15, the public hearing on the waterfront zone. Local law amending the zoning code of the waterfront district. Can I get the public hearing open?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now open. Can we summarize where we are right now with this, Andy? You want me to summarize it?
We could do it together. It's in the packet. So what seemed to me to be the case is that there were iterations of the proposed amendments that kind of got more complicated than it had to be because the board really only wanted to change one thing at the end of the day, which has to do with the height of a permissible building.
Height width was really
Height,
the two, and then
Right. And so I took the law instead of the sort of the law written about the law kind of thing we have to do to actually pass it. And I gave it back to you with just that one piece edited so people could see the whole law, which is the zoning, the sustainability criteria that you need to do in order to get the bonus FAR up to 1.5, which the board indicated is supported. And the fact that it's a special permit. Those are basically the three pieces, which I heard the board wanted to do. Trustee Carlin suggested that the board discuss having the bonus FAR also contingent on an affordability increment instead of just meeting the 10% in the local law 120, but something on top of that. So that would be a discussion item for tonight. If the board wants us to create a draft of this law, which incorporates incremental affordability as one of the things you need to do to get your bonus FAR, we could work on that.
all right, can I just make clear? This law will not apply to any existing proposal that's been made for it's exempt, it exempts by its
Right.
definition any existing proposal, which basically exempts the Tidewater TZ Vista proposal that's currently working its way and being.
Right.
Okay, that would be exempt. The proposal and any related proposal on that particular project would be exempt. There are basically, other than the the boat club, other than the boat club, there is no other property in the waterfront zone. Other than the lots that already have 5- and 6-story buildings on them. So I understand why we're doing this, and I think it's worthwhile that we do it. I think that we should take a minimal approach to it and get this off our plate after 6 months and say, this is my suggestion. We change 52 to 45, we change 70% to 60%. Those are the two changes we make. Strike the two numbers in the legislation and move on to brighter and better things. That'd be my suggestion, because otherwise we get bogged down in so much esoterica with this, and it's really not worth our time because it's not going to. There's no other proposal. This is academic in nature because of the fact that there are no other buildable parcels within the waterfront district. So that would be my suggestion. If you would like to continue to wade into the details of this, that's fine. But I'm done with this one. I'm done.
I just had a quick question about the new ad. Is that's only for the waterfront district with what Joe was saying about that redundancy? That's only the waterfront that has
What
that?
redundancy?
But with the,
No, that's not for everything, but
The
this was-
affordability apply, the
Yeah.
affordability change that we've been making would apply
would
everywhere.
apply everyone,
Yes, would
okay.
apply everywhere within the village.
So if it applies to,
I don't know why we need.
No, there are two issues here.
yeah,
For a density bonus,
uh-huh,
it doesn't apply.
okay,
For a special permit, it does apply.
okay,
Okay, and the special permit would affect all of the village.
okay,
But for the density bonus as part of the amenities incentives, then I suggested that we raise the affordable housing.
oh, as that
Okay.
okay,
Now,
okay.
in terms of what you're saying, Joe, I agree. Let's let's finish it because it's enough is enough, but. Sorry that I have to have a but I
I'm
was
so happy up to that point. Yeah.
No, I would like to know, and you mentioned the Tidewater TZ Vista. How long are we going to have to put up with a hole in front? That's my question. Is there any way that we can put a time limit before they start construction? Because we've extended their permit. I know they have a constitutionally vested right, but how long does that right run?
You're asking me a very sensitive legal question, and I don't want to answer that in public. I've had counseled all of you, I think, on this issue, within attorney-client confidential communications. And I could dig up my memos and we can talk about it some more. But I think I've expressed my clear opinion on this to all of you, some of you more than once.
We'll have a short executive session to just revisit that issue. That's a separate issue from revising.
Right.
Because it doesn't,
Right.
the revision of the code does not relate to the TZ Vista project.
Right, I guess that's where I'm at, is that if, in terms of the affordability stuff, if that's a separate matter, then yeah, let's kind of put this to bed and we can. I don't mind, I like those changes, Joe, and I think that we maybe should incorporate that going forward, but if it doesn't actually matter in the
For this.
waterfront,
Yes,
then I think it's fair to decouple that part of the discussion for now.
And to paraphrase Joe, this is this is another hill.
Yeah, no, that's kind of why I'm
We have
like,
so many all right,
it's very.
So for purposes of giving, and here's the thing, I can't tell you how many. This is required a lot of trying to figure out, and then there are changes that get made by Bob, which we didn't anticipate, and then that threw everything into cascade. To keep it simple and to try to eliminate all the other, my suggestion is, the big thing was to limit the size of the buildings. If indeed anything were to happen in the riverfront in the future, that we limit the size of the buildings to 45 from 52 and the width of the building from 70% of the lot to 60% of the lot. Those are the two changes we all agreed on. Then we were talking about making what was largely a semantic change on the FAR. And here's what I would say: if we're going to make the affordable housing change that you've requested, which I think is going to have a really good benefit for the village. And what I would suggest is, can we live with changing 52 to 45, changing 70 to 60, and then leaving the rest of it alone except for the exemption language to make sure that doesn't apply to any existing proposal? Are we good with that? Are you okay with that? Everybody's okay with that? So we can just basically eliminate all the other changes other than the exemption language that we need in order to, for legal purposes, but change 52 to 45, change 70 to 60, and no other changes that would require any more language changes.
It's on this proposal. It's an existing approval with vested.
Yes, the
permit,
vesting-
et cetera.
Yeah,
It's not-
whatever that language is,
It's not
but
just the proposal.
let's get revised, which is a much simpler statute, much simpler change to us, so we can look at it and we can get a resolution prepared for the next meeting to finally vote on this.
Sure. These are done that very simplified version, already started that, thank you, Andy.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Joe, for being understanding about that. I think we've made excellent progress on the DMU too, and made good progress on the waterfront to send a message about what we want to do in the future. And I think that's all excellent work.
Except I'm running out of hills to die on.
Well, no, we'll find a hill to the affordable housing, you're gonna die on that hill if we don't make the changes in the affordable housing. You're gonna stand there and take the hit. All right, we need to take a motion to end the executive session, not the executive, the motion and the public hearing on the waterfront zone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So from that, we now move to 6.7, resolution 2024-138, approving the closure of Hezekiah Easter Veteran Square from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Can I get this on the table?
Motion, second.
This would align
Yeah, the motions.
the